Integrity is the quality that guarantees the other qualities. Because you can say, I have vision and courage, but integrity means that you do. It means that this is not theoretical. So integrity is the most important of all. Today, in our world, we have a lot of problems with what are called situational ethics. Situational ethics are where people have ethics depending upon whether or not it's convenient or anybody's watching. But as we said yesterday, superior people are those who set high standards for themselves even when nobody is watching. Someone once said that if honesty did not exist, and that's probably the extension of integrity, if honesty did not exist, it would have to be invented as the surest way of getting rich. Now, I have some theories with regard to integrity. Not theories. No, theories are potential. These are fixed beliefs. One of them has to do with business. And in America today, they have looked at commercial television and have found a most remarkable thing. 84% of all villains depicted on commercial television, now in most movies, miniseries, and so on, are white-collar business people. 84% of all liars, cheats, crooks, murderers, thieves, polluters, and everything else, 84% are white-collar business people. Why is that? Well, they've asked them, why do you do this? This is the only group in America we can pick on without being accused of prejudice or discrimination. They simply lay back and take it. And we cannot talk about any racial group, any ethnic group, any religious group, or anything else without there being a furor. So therefore, there's only one group left, that's white-collar business people. And now they say, well, and they started to complain, well, there's too many businessmen being projected as villains, not enough women. It's not fair. So now what you have women being projected as liars, killers, thieves, cheats, murderers, swindlers, connivers, dope pushers, and everything else. Isn't that right? It's sort of, equality. It's politically correct. And yet, if you actually look at FBI arrest statistics, what you find? Less than 1% of all arrests in America are business people. Less than 1%. And of those, a tiny, minuscule fraction is women. Because women have, far higher qualities, characteristics, ethics, values, intelligence than men. Most cases, right? But can you imagine? In your whole life, you've probably, if you're a man, you've probably had experience with women who are different. But can you imagine them lying, cheating, conniving, killing, murdering, swindling, pushing dope, drugs, hit people and everything else? You can imagine hit women. It's so bizarre. It's almost like adult comic books. The point that I'm making is this. I've heard people say, and it infuriates me, especially young people coming out of college, well, I want to be successful in business, but I don't want to have to do the kind of things that you have to do to be successful in business. I will tell you this. The fundamental glue of all relationships is what? Trust. The fundamental glue that holds business together is absolute impeccable integrity and trust. And business people, in my estimation, who are successful are some of the finest, most honest, most decent, most straightforward, trustworthy people that you'll ever meet. You'll get swindled by all kinds of people, but not business people, because all of successful business is a progression from starting off with nothing and growing. And you grow in terms of the people that you meet and know, and the relationships you form and develop. And every one of those is built on trust. So a person who is successful is usually a person who has established a network of trust that expands in all directions. So if anybody ever says, well, I want to be successful in business, but I don't want to do the things that business people have to do. Business people have to be impeccably honest in order to survive, because there is no room. Why? What is the fundamental element? It's an S with two strokes over it that we deal with in business. S, two strokes. Come on. It's money, of course. And so therefore, are people sensitive about their money? And that's why trust is absolutely essential, absolutely indispensable. If you can develop and maintain high levels of integrity and trust and respect and esteem of your fellow man, your world belongs to you. That's why if an honesty did not exist, it would have to be invented as the surest way of getting rich. Here's the rule. Never compromise your integrity or your honesty for anything. No amount of money. Would you steal? No, I wouldn't steal. What if you could get away with it? How much? It's absolutely amazing. People don't realize that integrity is sort of like being pregnant. Either you are or you aren't. You don't have a little bit of integrity. Let's say, well, I have integrity just as long as nobody's looking. Okay, so here's the first. A is the reality principle. Now, the reality principle is what Jack Welch, and he learned this from Peter Drucker, considers to be the most important single principle of leadership. Article in Fortune magazine a couple of years ago of 7 principles of leadership for Jack Welch, the head and CEO of GE. He said the reality principle is number 1. In every single case, the only question he asks to start off with is, what's the reality here? What's the truth? What's the reality? What is your reality? The reality principle says you must be perfectly realistic, and the way Welch describes it and the way Drucker describes it is see the world as it is, not as you wish it would be or could be. See the world as it is. Look at it honestly. In psychology today, we have 2 major phenomena that leads to almost all mental illness. Phenomena number 1 is the phenomena of denial. Is we refuse to see the world the way it is. We refuse to see our relationships the way they are. Especially we refuse to see ourselves the way we really are. We engage in denial, and then denial leads quickly to self-delusion. When Maslow did his studies on self-actualizing men and women, superior men and women like yourself, he found that one quality that they had was they were incredibly objective toward themselves. They did not fool themselves or play games with their own heads. They looked at themselves in the mirror, as Cromwell once said, warts and all. Famous story when Oliver Cromwell was being painted by a court painter. He had big warts on his nose. And the painter had painted him without the warts. And he came back and he looked at the painting and he said, paint it warts and all. He said, I want this to be a perfectly honest depiction of who I really am. So that painting now hangs in the Royal Galleries with the warts on his nose, where his friends and compeers had all of the blemishes, ironed out in the painting. Well, it's the same with you and I. Face the world the way it is. A person who can admit their weaknesses, by the way, is a strong person. A person who can't is a weak person. A person who can say, I'm not perfect, is a much better person than a person who's always trying to maintain an illusion. So therefore, be willing to admit that you're weak. Is it possible to grow if you don't admit where you have areas where you need to grow in? The reason that people don't grow is they won't face the fact that they're weak in some areas. But if you face the fact that you're not perfect, that makes you a superior person. I'll tell you something else, by the way, about honesty and objectivity. Strong people have far more weaknesses than strengths. Strong people have far more weaknesses than strengths. You are all strong in certain areas, but you have far more weaknesses than you have strengths. Nothing wrong with that. Someone says, well, you're not very good at mathematics. Nope, so what? You don't have to defend or explain or anything else. You say, well, I could if I wanted to. No, that's not my area of strength. Remember, if you maximized and worked on your areas of strength for your whole life, you'd never achieve everything that's possible for you. How can you possibly spend time working on the areas where you don't have any strength or interest at all? So, denial and self-delusion means not facing the world and not facing ourselves the way we are. Be objective. Be honest with yourself. Face the facts. If somebody tells you that you're this or that or the other thing, consider it openly and honestly. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. Now, second B is truthfulness. And truthfulness is very important. I've told you about my children, and I'm very proud of my children. I love my children. We all love our children, but I know that I can't do everything for my children. I cannot teach them everything. I would love to sit down and lecture to them day after day and tell them how to be successful and good and everything else. So I've decided many years ago I would focus on one thing, and it was truthfulness. And so I've told my children, always tell the truth. Always tell the truth. No matter what, always tell the truth. I read a line many years ago in studying child raising, and by the way, if you raise children and you don't study how to raise children, you should start. Because raising children is one of the most complicated and the most important thing that is done in our society. All of our society depends upon how well children are raised. That's why mothers are the most important people in our society. Anything you do in business comes and goes and becomes irrelevant. But raising children lasts for decades, if not for generations. My opinion. Anyway, I focus on my children. I read this little one-liner. It said, if your children lie, who has made them afraid to tell the truth? Ooh, wow. I said, that's it, baby. I've got religion now. I went to my children. I said, listen, you must always tell me the truth. No matter what, tell me the truth. I promise you this, you'll never get in trouble for telling the truth. You will never have to be afraid to tell the truth. Because if you're afraid to tell the truth and you lie, the lying will become a habit. Pretty soon you won't know when you're telling the truth or lying or half-truth or half-lying. It's very important that you tell the truth. And I've had to drum this in over and over and over again. It takes kids a long time to learn this. When kids are young, they know they lie. If you have young children under the age of 10 or 12, they lie. It's not that it's honest. There's nothing wrong with them. This lying is just a conversational gambit. I caught my son Michael in a lie when he was 10 years old. I said, Michael, that's a barefaced lie. How could you say that? He said, I just thought I'd give it a shot. It's true. In other words, they don't think anything of it. It's just a shot. Give it a shot. If it works, do more of it. If it doesn't work, try something else. Now, that's okay when you're young because you're learning how to get along in the world. It's not okay when you get older. So I explain to them and I lecture to them and I talk to them and I hold their hands and I counsel and I, love and hug and care and share. And I say, whatever you do, tell me the truth. Tell your mother the truth. Tell us the truth. You'll never get in trouble for telling the truth. And now we've got Christina who's 17 and she is so meticulous she cannot not tell the truth. She cannot dissemble. She cannot even fake things. She cannot be phony. And surprise, surprise, this is a young woman who is confident and strong and outgoing and popular and liked and respected by all her friends. And you know what her friends say to her? Geez, I wish I could tell my parents the truth the way you do. I wish I could be so straight with my parents, but I have to lie to them all the time because I don't know how they'll react. Her friends look up to her and wish they could tell the truth, and her friends are often in a lot of trouble. Too much drugs, too much promiscuous sex, too much alcohol, too much all kinds of stuff. They can't tell their parents the truth. Christina can always tell us the truth. And whatever it is, we talk about it. Whatever it is, she never gets in trouble. Now I've got Michael. He's 14, and I've got him over the hump. Tough going. Boys are dreadful. Boys are cursed with what is called testosterone poisoning. And Michael went through this really bad period where he wasn't sure whether his loyalties were to his friends or his peers, and back and forth and half-truths and everything else. And I finally just beat him down psychologically, not physically, until finally he tells the truth. And finally I say, Michael, don't do this. And later on I pick him up, I say, what did you do tonight? He said, well, I did that. I said, okay, that's fine. I appreciate you telling me the truth. He said, I thought about lying. He said, but I know I never get in trouble for telling the truth. And he said, I always feel crummy when I lie anyway. And his friends admire his situation. Geez, he can tell the truth. He never has to make up a story or lie. He tells the truth. And now I've got my other sons. My other kids are coming up. If you only do one thing, tell the truth in everything you do, and make sure that your kids tell the truth. Insist on the truth. Do not allow a compromise with the truth. A compromise with the truth is a cancer that metastasizes through lives and personalities and relationships. So truthfulness is critically important to integrity. Number 4 is commitment. Leaders have very, very high levels of commitment. Leaders have very high levels of commitment. They don't take any prisoners. They're totally in there. They don't pussyfoot in the game of life. The leader is completely dedicated to the success of the organization. They didn't tell General Schwarzkopf, go over to that Gulf and, give it your best shot. Counter-react to what Saddam Hussein is doing. They picked Schwarzkopf. They said, if you put this man in command, he will come back with a victory. And they sent him over there and they said, go over there and win. He said, good. He said, use your own best discretion. He said, we'll stay out of your way. We'll not try to second guess you, but you win. So for 6 months after they had promised him this, they kept urging him, attack. Come on, attack. You were really getting a beating up in the press. He said, I'm not ready yet. I'll attack when I'm ready. Come on, attack. I'm not ready. And they kept saying to Bush and to Powell, how come he's not attacking? Well, they said, we have decided to leave the commander in place in charge of the operation. We will not second guess the commander on the ground. And so, come on. And they're predicting all these terrible things and so on. He said, no. He said, my goal is low body count. He said, if we are going to fight this battle, I want the lowest number of casualties amongst Americans. It's very important because it's so politically sensitive. So he spent 6 months planning. And in 100 hours, the second largest army in the world defeated the fourth largest army in the world. The greatest military defeat or reversal in the history of man in 100 hours with a casualty rate so low as to be unbelievable. They said what Schwarzkopf has done is really made it hard for the next general in the next war. How do you compete with that? You put in 330,000 men against a 500,000 person army and win in 100 hours. It's 4 days. Geez. With such a low casualty rate as to be unbelievable. The commitment was to victory. The commitment is to winning. Don't do it unless you're going to do it wholeheartedly. So here are the rules with commitment. Commitment is the catalyst that activates and energizes the internal and external resources of the organization. It's the catalyst, like a chemical catalyst that causes, boom, everything to come to place. That's why whenever an organization is in trouble,